Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 6, another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So let's crack on. The first one is a new feature from Meta for their Oculus, or at least their Quest experiences within virtual reality. Now this is a feature we didn't really need to see, or want to see should I say, but unfortunately is becoming more and more necessary because of online harassment, which is a growing problem. So this is within the Horizon Worlds and Horizon Venues multiplayer worlds within Oculus, which allows you to essentially play games and meet other people, but is also targeting or the target of more and more online harassment. So this is called the personal boundary, and it puts a virtual 4-foot boundary around your avatar which nobody can get into. So as I say, didn't really want to see this feature, but we're going to see more and more of these sorts of things to protect people in the virtual world. There you go. The second thing is going to be about frogs regrowing their limbs. So this is functional limbs as well. Now what scientists have done here, and this is from Tufts and Harvard in America, what they've done is they've amputated the limb of a frog, unfortunately, but what they've then done is they've put on this what they call a biodome, which is a cup full of goop. So there are 5 special chemicals in that goop that mimic the amniotic environment, so the environment essentially when you were being grown in the womb. So they just put it on the stump for 24 hours, that's all that's needed. They take it off and then they let the frog go on its way, and then it grows over the next month or so, it then grows its limb. So it wasn't exactly a perfect limb, but it's functional. It had bones, it had muscles, it had toes, for instance, on the end of it, had blood, all sorts of things in there as well. So so this is really, really interesting, not only for amputees, but also for injury and all that sort of stuff as well. So what we do with that next is going to get kind of curious, but yeah, whatever's in that 5 goop cup special drug thing, really, really interesting stuff. So yeah, frogs are growing limbs. This is NVIDIA, and they always come out with some really interesting videos. Now the Omniverse, as they call it, has been around for a while. This is their sort of digital twin platform. So what they do is they create highly detailed digital twins of things. In this case, this is a city, and as you can see probably from that intro shot, then it's almost indistinguishable from reality. So what they're doing here is they're figuring out where the best place to place your 5G radio masts. 5G radio or 5G transmitters have problems getting through buildings and walls and that sort of thing, so it's critical that you find the optimum place to put them. So what they're doing is they're using not only the Omniverse here, but they're using a simulation of 5G to figure out how it would bounce off buildings and find its way into cars, that sort of thing, and etc. So that's really interesting. What we keep hearing about digital twins, but this is just showing you actually a really good practical example of saving probably the telecommunications millions and millions of dollars from misplaced transmitters. There you go. Sorry developers, it's another one of those. I do apologise, but this is quite interesting. So this is DeepMind's AlphaCode. So this is a code writing AI essentially. It can write code all by itself. The interesting thing here is not just it can write code, but it can understand the problem in the first place as well as writing the code. So for instance, on the left hand side you can see just some normal English. It's a sort of a brief of such. In this case it's about penalty shootouts at the end of a football game, and how do you actually then turn that into code and simulate it with code, and it's done that and it's passed this test, for instance. Now they entered it into 10 human competitions for code writing developers, and it actually beat what 46% of them, or it was in the top 46% of results. So it didn't pass every single test, but you can go onto the website and have a look at it. You can have a look at each one of the tests, you can have a look at the problem and the solution as well. So that's kind of interesting. Obviously these things aren't going away. What you do with them I think is the most important thing, and how we integrate human coding with AI coding I think is the next interesting step. Now this one's quite a tricky one, but really interesting as well. Now this is 2 things going on here. One is a little bit playful and the other one is actually quite serious. So the first serious thing is about how do we store things on the blockchain, especially when we're hearing a lot about NFTs. Essentially an NFT is a packet of information, and within that packet of information is a reference to maybe the artwork or the music or whatever the thing is that you bought. So that thing, this sits somewhere else that you can reference on a web server, that sort of thing. Now if that web server goes down or the URL changes or whatever happens, then obviously the reference now doesn't work. So your NFT that you bought now has an invalid reference. It cannot be found. So the piece of music is now not there. So what they're actually trying to put forward as a hypothesis here is you can actually run, or at least you can store code on the blockchain as basically the NFT. So in this case, what it's doing is it's generating music using C code, and it's also generating this slightly wacky video, but it's doing that using code that you can store as the NFT. So basically the blockchain contains everything you need to actually generate your artwork back. As a second, so that's kind of cool, quite interesting. And by the way, the Ethereum blockchain actually runs on C anyway, so there's no sort of new things needed, there's no dependencies, new libraries, which is kind of cool. The second thing that's also quite interesting is, they're actually sort of poking fun at it a little bit, which is what happens when you do have some sort of digital catastrophe or something goes wrong. You need a physical backup, some redundant physical media that is stored off-site, etc. So that's why they give you your passwords if you have a blockchain wallet or something like that. They'll say write down these 16 words so that it's safe just in case. So what they're saying here is that you can actually get these NFTs, which are buyable on OpenSea, actually etched onto a 12-inch vinyl record. You can store that in your record collection off-site. I thought that was really neat. So digital NFTs on 12-inch vinyl. You heard it here first. Facebook have had a pretty tough week. Now, this actually started with essentially an earnings call, or at least an update that in the first time in 18 years, they've had a reduction of their daily average users or active users. So what that basically means is for the first time in 18 years, actually numbers are going down, which is bad. Obviously, the industry reacted very badly to that, and as you can see, there's a huge drop in their share price, and it also led Mark's personal wealth to go down by £21 billion or $29 billion, if you prefer that. Now, there's obviously a lot of talking online about actually, if it goes down by $21 billion, then actually should anybody have that amount of wealth where they can lose that amount of money and still not really care about it? So that's number one. Number two, there's three things, by the way. Number two is that there is news coming out that the EU is getting more and more basically chasing after Facebook about processing data in the US. So previously there was a way of taking European data and sort of putting it in safe harbor so that it can be processed in the US, but the European courts are kind of knuckling down and say, no, actually it's becoming more and more outside of GDPR, and we need to stop you doing that. So you either process it in the EU or you shut down your operations. So there has been some not denying the fact that they might actually shut down Facebook and Instagram in the EU if they are not allowed to run their data processing in the US. So that could happen, might just be bluff and bluster, but hot off the press basically. And the third thing is, this is a little bit of a kick in the teeth for Facebook or Meta, in that Snapchat have actually announced that for the first time ever they're in profit. So their shares went up by 58% in the same period. So that must be doubly annoying. There you go. And finally, we have the Uncensored Library. So this is really interesting, essentially an art piece here, which makes note of the fact that certain countries or regimes around the world censor journalism or free speech, and therefore children growing up in those countries don't actually have access to certain literature that other countries certainly have, i.e. censorship. So, but actually, interestingly, they do have access to things like Minecraft. So Minecraft isn't censored, but journalism is. So what they've done is they've created this virtual library that you download as a zip file and you upload to your installation of Minecraft, and it then gives you access to this physical library with all of these great works of journalism and books and etc. etc. So yeah, so it's really interesting the way you can duck through a censorship boundary using Minecraft. Who'd have thought? There you go. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful. Hopefully I'll see you again next week. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video.